Coming up on today's episode, I'm taking you all on a little journey and tour of my development, once again, up until this point. We'll start right before the lockdown, investigating the trends and habits that I've observed, and especially my tendency to be the lone wolf. We'll then take a look at the barriers I've came across and the wisdom I've gained since the last episode. And finally, we'll wrap by talking about what actions I've taken, why I've done those actions, and what I'll be doing moving forward. All up next on Themindhere. What is up, everyone? It's Theguyhere, and welcome back to another episode of Themindhere, the bi-weekly podcast where I talk about new knowledge I've learned, projects I'm working on, and current events. Topics may be random, but I hope that with each episode you can come away with a fresh perspective on the universe. Welcome to all of you who are here for the first time. If you like my content and want to see more, please consider subscribing. All right, to start off, we're going right into the habits and trends that I've noticed before the pandemic. So before the pandemic, I noticed that, so backing up a little bit, the reason why I'm going through all this is I'm sort of structuring this episode a little differently. It's going to be a bit of a long one, but it'll talk about the development and build up to the lessons I've learned since last episode. But to give some context for those of you who might not have been following or who might have forgotten all the past episodes that have gone through, give a little bit of a background for what kind of person I was before the lockdown and what sort of happened, I think, during the lockdown and what's happening now, right? So before the lockdown, the person that I was, that I think the tendencies that I had were that I like to do things sort of by myself. Even though I was part of many groups, cross country, Boy Scouts, and various clubs in high school, I tended to be kind of the lone person. I took some leadership positions, but often I took on a lot of the work myself, and sort of rarely reached out for other people to help or collaborate. And it wasn't that I was trying to be super controlling of everything. If anything, I might have been more laissez-faire, but I tended to do things myself without the constant input of others in it. And that can be a good thing, but as I'll explain later, that's something that I'm working on changing. So that's the sort of person I was, where I often started or led clubs by myself with plans that I've made, and other people usually helped out in the plans that I've laid out. Or I would have a sort of schedule and other people would assist in that. So it was often that I was the sort of person that was taking the lead and making decisions. And often that was okay, especially in, I guess, high school clubs and events, or younger, where, you know, some people are just more willing to be the ones that are helping with a structure already in place than creating the new structure. I tended to be the one that liked to sort of have the reins and the control on sort of how the development came into place. But as the pandemic progressed, I started off the lockdown period, the isolation period, where I didn't really talk with other people, or I did talk, but it wasn't like face-to-face. And that was face-to-face contact is contact. Face-to-face interactions are, there's a lot more fidelity in, or stop using big terms, fidelity, a lot more information you can convey across, and it's more natural, and there was often more chances to do so, whereas virtually you had to set out time and there was a higher entry barrier to conversing and interacting with other people. So the beginning of the isolation period started off with closing, because everything was closed down. I was feeling right comfortable where I am, control over my own schedule, started doing a lot of looking for courses that I could take online to supplement the pretty much non-existent high school courses that I was now taking, and seeing what projects I can do, all of that stuff. Beginning of 2020 was, I'd say, a good developmental period, and I felt pretty strong with what I had going. As I progressed, it got to me where habits just started slipping a little bit. And before long, it kind of snowballed where I was feeling less and less motivated to do things during the day. More distractions came in, more entertainment. There was also the sense of just the dullness of daily life that was very similar in every respect, and the lack of communication with the outside world sort of closed in and made the scope and the horizon that I was seeing every day very small. And that got to me in some ways. So that wasn't something that was great. And as it turns out, being the lone wolf that I always was, the habit of doing things myself wasn't helping there. Now, why do I think that I've sort of become that lone wolf, that tendency to, do things myself rather than, having a whole bunch of other people being involved is... I think it goes back to my higher standards that I have for myself and what I want to produce, right? Historically, with the team projects that I've been on, and I'm sure a lot of you have had similar experiences with some team projects in, I guess, grade school, there was a tendency of a lot of people to freeload off of other teammates that were more willing to do work, the ones that really wanted to do well on the project because it was a team event or a team project. Chances are you're being graded the same, and every team member was getting pretty much the same score. So if you did nothing and other people did all the work, you still get a good score, a good grade. So obviously the most efficient choice you wanted to make if you were only concerned with grades. But because I was more concerned with what I was actually learning and, of course, the quality of work I put out, I had a higher standard for the workmanship that was put in. And so often I would be the one that would take over sort of the development and the structure of what was going on. And often I didn't have enough trust in other people because when I did, then things wouldn't turn out well and it would pretty much fall apart. And then I would be the one that have to step in and make emergency adjustments. So that might have been the development of a lack of trust in other people to be able to handle things the way that I would want it to turn out. So that might have contributed to my tendency to be the lone wolf because I didn't trust other people to be able to get the results that I would have wanted. That combined maybe with the literature that I read at the time in middle school. I was a big fan of The Ranger's Apprentice, and of course, there were quite a few elements of being the Lone Ranger. They're doing all the incredible stuff that was written in the book. Now, of course, there was a good amount of teamwork in there as well, but there was sort of that sort of putting the individual on the pedestal there, and that could have affected me. But either way, that's some of the background of the lone wolf nature in me that I've had. So why won't this work going forward? Well, as I've learned, being the only person working on a project or even working on myself, without the input of the outside world, I can quickly get off ground, opposite of grounded, whatever that word is. It's slipping my mind, but often I can get off track. There we go. So I might start off with good intentions and be working diligently, but if there's no outside people to hold accountable to, pretty soon I'd fall entrapment into some of my own excuses that I make up, and with the nature of momentum, as that momentum starts to slowing down and I stop getting motivation to do work, I'll see that there are less and less results, feeling less motivated to do so, and that spiral out of control. So the outside accountability is one of something that's pretty important, but also the fact that there are other people there that would help me. That's a good motivating force. And that's not something that I've experienced during this isolation period or the lockdown period. So going forward, especially with more complex projects too, I can't realistically be the one that knows intimately every detail. There needs to be some sort of specialization, delegation, and distribution of work and knowledge there. I can't be the only one doing a project, especially some of the more complex ones or more ambitious ones that I might think up of. So that's why I can't be going forward with that lone wolf attitude. So what would I do about it? What are some things that I think I can go forward with? Well, one of the things that I've begun to do, and I've sort of been doing, but has been put a bit on hold during the lockdown period, and now I'm trying to bring back up, is sharing and connecting with other people and seeking advice with other people. Getting involved in various different communities. The important part is that I gain sort of a sense of connectiveness and being a sense of that I'm part of a group. That way it feels like there's a distribution of contribution, and there's that nice feeling of usness, if that's a word. So that's something that I'm doing, where connecting out to various groups that I haven't had before, maybe, or reconnecting to old ones that have the connections have sort of become stale. All of that's something that I'm trying to do to make myself less of just this solo person moving through life, but one person out of many, and creating some sort of beautiful world together with a whole bunch of other people, chasing a collective dream, perhaps. So that's the sort of steps that I've taken for not being the lone wolf that I've historically have been. So that's something that I've noticed, and that it's something I noticed, and as I've tried to pull myself back into the more fulfilling life that I've had before the tail end of this lockdown period. So as I've noticed, I realized that just noticing and pointing out the lone wolf nature isn't really enough. Of course, I've reached out to different groups, and now I've got some connections back. Great. But I'm still not doing the work that I wanted. My work ethics aren't where I want them to be. There's something that was still going on. And I noticed that it was for the most part, it was because that I've been constantly distracted. And I searched for what sorts of distractions. As it turned out, the most distracting thing that I had up until maybe the past few weeks, so since several months ago up until now, were the mobile games that I had. As most of you are pretty familiar with, mobile games have become quite popular. And I think there's probably a reason to that, where it's convenient and easy. Your phone is right there versus, booting up your workstation or bringing out a laptop. Your phone is pretty easy to reach to, and you can quickly get into it. Most of them are sort of tailored with the previous experiences of game design to make it super engaging, which is very fun. But the issue here is that because they're so convenient, you're never just going to fill in your free time. Your free time is going to extend to the amount of time that you want to play into the game. So it's not just filling in free time, it's going to have a parasitic relationship with your time and your schedule that you wanted. And of course, because they are so successful, I classify this as a very good distraction, because when you're distracted, you're not even noticing that you're being distracted. Sometimes certain distractions, I have that lingering feeling of, okay, I know I'm supposed to be doing other things, but I don't feel like it right now. No. With mobile games, it's often where you've already pre-justified it, where, okay, I'm just taking a little bit of free time that I've had. Maybe I'm going a quick trip to the bathroom, a lunch break. I'm gonna bring out a few of the games that I've had just to check on the progress. Pretty soon you've dumped in another 2 hours into it, and your schedules quickly get thrown into disarray. So they're a pretty powerful distraction. So if I've learned anything from the trip back into mobile games for a few weeks, a few months, is that the convenience of your tools matter a lot. When something is super convenient, you have to guard that convenience with what you want to be available when it's convenient. You have control of what you have on your phone. For me, I can be more of a compulsive person with the inspiration and projects that I take on. So when I have these distractions on my phone and they're readily available, then of course I'll be readily distracted. But if I want to have, say, my schedule on there, sort of my productivity, important contacts on there, then of course, when I need them, they'll be readily available. And that's something that I want. So being able to structure your environment to optimize for what you want here, taking in mind the convenience is something that's pretty important. So that's why I've deleted most of all of the active mobile games that I've had. The few others that I have are maybe like Sudoku, but those are on the wayside. And one thing I do with my phone, it's an iPhone 11. What I do is I remove everything off the home screen that I don't need. And most things are put into these app folders where I have to do extra steps to go through and search for them, mostly because I don't use them that often. And the very few that I need, say like authenticator apps, schedules, calculators, stuff like that, are on the one screen that I have. So there's no scrolling through different screens. That way it's optimized for what I want it to be used for. So a few lessons there with the convenience factors and mobile distractions that I've come to love and hate at the same time. So lessons there from the failures that I've had. So I took away some of the mobile distractions there, but it's not like it's not like my work ethics had necessarily improved. It just meant that I didn't have the distractions that I normally had, the good distractions where I didn't even realize I was being distracted until it was pretty much too late. So at this point, it was just a lack of motivation that I was feeling, and it was feeling, there was a lot of pressure that I felt. It was kind of negative, but at least I knew that it was there instead of being blissfully blind to it. So what was going on here? And this is where I stumbled across, through my distraction loops through YouTube, a video by Matt D'Avella. If you don't know who he is, he's, I guess you could say, productivity YouTuber. Not really. Also sort of lifestyle, minimalism YouTuber. He talks a lot about, he has a lot of insightful videos, so I do recommend you check him out. But the specific video that I stumbled across was about, self-improvement, and how too much focus on that can make you essentially become a narcissist. And his point was that if you focus too much on yourself and take the words of personal development coaches and gurus out there too much to the word, and going too far into a spectrum, then it's pretty detrimental, where you become too self-centered, and then you don't become the person that you wanted to in the first place, that you might have began your self-development journey with. And something that I've realized that I've fallen into is the trap that where I'm thinking, okay, I need to focus on myself so that I can become a better person. But oftentimes focusing on yourself is not enough. And especially for me, I find that when I have some sort of external deadline or external pressure, some accountability towards others, I more reliably get work done, and I more reliably hold up to the standards that I put out. With myself, I have a higher chance of letting things slip. So the dedication towards others is something that is pretty important there. So I've done some sort of refactoring with the thoughts and ideas that I've taken, the perspectives that I had, rather than doing things for myself so that I am healthy, so that I can walk through the day and feel sort of self-satisfied. Instead, I've tried to take on a different view where I'm doing these things for others. What is my purpose? Purpose is to help improve the lives of others. Okay. Why am I maybe making YouTube videos? I've stated in the past that part of it is to express myself in a media and to practice my speaking abilities. Fair. But I also needed that other point where I wanted to help others who were maybe, had a similar journey or are at similar places, and maybe we can help each other out or give some ideas for other people, give some inspiration to other people. There's a balancing element where on one hand, you do need some personal benefits to make it all sort of worth your time doing, because in the event that you helping others in an endeavor fails, you still have that personal benefit from something, from a project, say. So if you're doing a project to develop an app that makes scheduling easier, for example, even if no one else takes it and it doesn't take off like you wanted, at least you have something that you can use, right? So it's the minimal benefit of something that you're doing. But having the element of helping others is important as well. If you do things just for yourself, then it feels, at least for me, it feels kind of, it's not holistic, where you're not helping. I feel best when I'm helping other people. So if there's not that element in there, then it just feels wrong to be doing. So having that element in there and putting more focus on that, I think I've deviated from that too much. So putting more focus into how I'm helping others and how I can impact others if I stay to my goals is something that I've been working on. And through this video, I've been working to improve myself on. So if you're interested, I'll link that I'll put it in the description of the YouTube video, as well as in the card somewhere while I was talking about this. If you're interested, I'd highly recommend you checking it out, and also Matt D'Avella himself. All right, so at this point, I've gotten a good direction of where I want to go. I've also, laid out some paths and some tools that I can do. So here's some of the actions that I've taken throughout the past 2 weeks up until this episode. I've started off by taking cold showers. Sounds kind of like the cliche self-improvement where they always recommend taking that cold shower and stuff. I'm not taking showers. I'm not taking a cold shower in the sense that it remains cold. What I'm doing is, as soon as I turn that water on, I'm jumping right into it. That way I get the cold end of the shower, and it's still that shock factor where it's, as far as I've read, has some certain benefits with it, but also the fact that it sort of pushes you to overcome these barriers, right? If you've ever taken a cold shower, it's at the first time you're doing it, you sort of just stand there with the faucet and you're about to turn it on, but then you're thinking, okay, do I really want to do this? And you're walking through what you want to do and how you go through it. Like it's some sort of performance you have to do, but it does feel, there is a certain barrier you have to overcome. But once you overcome it and you do that on a daily basis, you start to become comfortable with it, that you realize that there will be this shock and maybe uncomfortable, maybe not necessarily pain. Maybe you'll think of it as pain first when you do it at the first time, but you'll have to overcome that shock and that high barrier to performing and doing work. But once you keep doing that, a lot of things that you do in your daily life will suddenly become less of a barrier, because if you're able to walk into the shower every day, turn on that faucet, get yourself that cold shower, at least that beginning part of it, then And then you gain that mental ability to overcome those barriers that would otherwise prevent you from doing the productive work that you want. So, and it gets you moving a little bit. It gets your heart racing because you just had something that was really uncomfortable, you've had to fight with yourself to get that faucet turned on. But once you've done it, you now have that sense of accomplishment. And that helps you propel you forward, gives you momentum to keep doing things that would give you accomplishments. So cold showers, it's the first thing that I did. Pretty reliable, and I would recommend you doing it. If you're not comfortable with the consistent coldness, which can get to me sometimes, then just do it where you jump in as soon as the water turns on. You get that cold head of the cold part of the shower, but also you start to slowly warm up and you get to take an actual enjoyable shower afterwards. So cold showers. Next, focused on tailoring to myself, tailoring the environment for optimizing the person that I want to be. And a few things that I did, talked about it in the last episode, but changing the schedule. I've better implemented that now, where I've been waking up. I've been waking up a little earlier, and I've woken up several times at around 5:30 to get a good amount of work done before I have to go to work to my internship, and then come back at the end of the day, and then going to sleep early at the end of the day so that I'm not wasting the waking hours. I push it all in the early morning so that there's more time to be productive, and by the time I come back from work, I've realized that my energy levels are super low. So I try to minimize that amount of time so that I can do more productive stuff early in the morning when my energy levels are high. And what I've also been starting to do is in the mornings, I will listen to either a podcast episode by Rob Dial. He's a motivational speaker, a life coach. So that helps me get into the productive mindset, and get myself inspired, or just, search up on YouTube inspirational videos and pick one that seems like it'll help me throughout the morning, throughout the day. Those are some things that, are little factors, but help make the daily life a lot better and more suited towards the person that I want to become. So those are some important things there. And last but not least, I'm also trying to do putting some more active learning and active preventative maintenance into my schedules, and into my daily habits, where I'm at the end of the day, I used to have this reflection, and I still do. At the end of the day, I do a reflection of what happened during the day, what accomplishments I've done, what disappointments there were, the distractions I had, some improvements that I can make in the future. And those are meant to be so that I reflect on those and then take my life in the driver's seat of my life, per se, where I'm the one in control and I can see that certain things are going wrong, so I can take the wheel and get myself back on track rather than letting things slide until it's too late. I hit a wall and then I have to spend all this energy building myself back. So taking a bit more active role in my life and actively learning whenever I'm doing something, say like cooking or creating art, making music, after the creation or even during the creation, noting what worked and what doesn't, and actively improving, iterating every step instead of falling into a dull pattern. Active learning is something that will sort of compound the skills that I learn and help me improve in the future. So a bit more focus on that is something that I've been doing. So that sort of wraps up what I've been doing. Moving forward, I've said this last episode, but I'm working on my life operating system in Notion, where I keep all my notes, my schedules, the projects, and how I'm keeping track of everything. Working to improve that. At this point, I actually am pretty close to finishing. I have two things left. One is making a dashboard for all the data and making some graphs so I can see the trends instead of scrolling through a massive database or a table. That's not a good visual for that. So that's one I'm working on. And then the final one Part of this is just bringing in all the different projects and the different knowledge areas that I want to work on and improve right now. After that, my life operating system will be, for now, complete, and maybe I'll do a video about it, showing how my system works and what one could do to get started with a sort of life operating system. So that's going on. That is priority number one, but alongside that, I'm working on that Villager Defense Minecraft plugin. Because there are people that depend on this plugin, and I'm actively working with a server group that's using this plugin. I'm dedicating time as well, alongside with fixing my Life OS, to complete this plugin, at least the first production version of it. So those two will consume most of my time up until I get my Life OS finished and get that plugin going. In the meantime, I want to really start spending maybe 30 minutes to an hour a day on just improving on topics, consolidating notes that I've had previously to refresh on certain topics that I want to keep in mind, maybe watching the backlog of videos that I've put in the save list that are informational, or some of the articles that I've put in the backlog. So spending time every day doing things that are, on the maintenance category, where I'm keeping things up to date, keeping my knowledge up to date. And of course, starting up new projects, thinking of ways to get myself more involved and feel that, get that feeling of achievement better. So that's what we're doing going forward. So hopefully you've enjoyed this episode. That's going to wrap up the journey of my development up until then. If you didn't mind my rambling, hopefully you found something that was insightful, or maybe sparked some inspiration in you. Either way, hopefully this was something that you enjoyed listening to, even if maybe you're putting this on the background. Anyways, that'll wrap it up for this episode. Thank you all for listening. I appreciate all the support that you all have given me. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to leave them down in the comment section below. And if you found this episode to be insightful, or if you found this podcast to be helpful, consider sharing this with your friends and colleagues that you might benefit from this. And of course, if you found that this episode was insightful, then consider liking and sharing this with others. If you feel like that I'm a person that other people might enjoy, consider subscribing. Anyways, take care, stay humble, and I'll see you all in the next episode.